I wonder how much people hated me for just leaving it off where I did last week. Hello there, everybody. Sobar92, aka Nightmare, and welcome back to DS Irae interview with Kaziklu Bey. Last episode, had ourselves a nice little dinner chat, and Bey's meter decided to go off, so yeah, he just... I guess these two are gonna casually just duke it out in the middle of a church. How? I guess you could consider that fitting? Kind of, I guess? I don't know if you can consider that fitting or just, I don't know, stylistic maybe? That'd probably be a good choice. Anyway! After leaving the house, we just silently walked to the cathedral. Upon arrival, I turned to face him.
その前にいくつか問うので答えてもらおう。こちらも付き合ってやるというのに、まさか拒みはしないだろう。いいぜ、言ってみろ。
I had a hunch about what he was gonna say. After all, I didn't know why, but he was fixated on Claudia.
お前は彼女を殺すつもりでいるのだ。それは？その魂を奪うつもりか。よく知ってるな。メルクリウスに聞いたのかよ。
Maybe. Even if all their beliefs are based on delusion, the Vatican's dogs weren't anything to scoff at. There wasn't anything surprising about him knowing our nature. He'd somehow ended up surviving the anomaly at Kachin, then even stood before Lord Hydric. At that point, there was no way we'd go through those irrelevant questions.
つうかお前、いつどこであの野郎と知り合ったんだ？最初からそういう口ぶりだったじゃねえか。
Well, like all stories, it started off like thousands of years ago.
How the fuck? You know what? Just go ahead. Just go ahead. I don't even give a shit anymore.
バチカン経由で俺らの情報を聞いてただけっつう感じでもなかったぞ。そこら辺はどうなんだよ。
別に何のこともない話だ。私はこの世界に長く関わっているというだけに過ぎ。そしてそれは彼にも言えることだ。互いに古い者同士ならば知己となりうる機会も増える。
Ah, that was reasonable. Though Ludwig didn't look much older than me. I knew that didn't mean shit. People who've been behind the scenes since they were brats weren't that rare. And you had people like Malleus, who'd been around for fuck knows how long. Hell, Mercurius himself was a goddamn enigma. Nothing he could have done in the past would have surprised me at that point.
では続けるぞ。お前は彼女の望みを知っているんだ。さっきの会話でもあった通り、クラウディアは人生の充実を求めている。言葉にすればありきたりだが、決して甘い道ではない。思いが、熱が、ひたむきさが違う。たとえ同じ立場で同じことを求めても、彼女の真似ができる者などまずいないと言えるはずだ。
そうかもな。あそこまでのアホがポンポンしゃしゃってきても困る。どいつもこいつもああだったら人類絶滅しまうぜ。ありゃ死にたがりの病ってやつだ。
そこについてだけは同意しよう。だが結果論、クラウディアは死を望んでいるわけではない。
だが死んでも構わねえとは思う。
そうだ。望みが果たせたなら。
どの道ほっといても死んじまう身だからな。
I mean, judging by her condition, yes. Ludwig closed his eyes, if lamenting the fact. That was enough for me to realize something. Apparently, he was aware that Claudia didn't have much time left. He then opened his eyes and looked at me directly before speaking in a challenging tone.
ゆえにこそ、死なせはせぬと思わんの。
You wanna try doing a creepy expression? You know what, I'll give you a 6 out of 10 on that one.
クラウディアは死に瀕しているが、死を希求などしていない。ああ、その通りだ。ならば彼女の輝きをここでついえさせねばならん道理がどこにある。 できるならば死にたくない。そう可能であるなら生かすべきだ。そうすることでさらに上へ、天の果てまでクラウディアの光は増していくはず。あれは一瞬刹那のきらめきで終わらせるべき魂ではない奇跡なのだ。こうこうと燃え続ける無ビューの祝福でなければならん。お前はそう思わんのか。
And here we have two sides of the similar coin. They both have a thing for Claudia, specifically, I guess, her radiance of sorts, but it's for two entirely different reasons.
思わねえな。
I answered without any hesitation to speak of.
俺があいつに思うことは、死にたいわけでもねえくせに死のうとしてる気持ち悪さとムカつきだけだよ。できるなら死にたくない。ドキュメ。それが俺は許せねえんだ。あがかねえことにキレてんだよ。だから俺はあいつに死にたくないと言わせてやる。みっともなく醜態を晒させて、ドロドロに這いずらせながら狂ったように叫ばせてやる。
Not putting yourself in a positive light, but then again, this is Kaziklu Bey we're talking about.
何を引き換えにしても行きたいと。俺はその瞬間が見たくて見たくて、はあ、見たくてたまんねえのさ。
ではなぜその後に殺そうとする。お前とて彼女に生を渇望してほしいと願っている点は同じだろう。
アホくせえこと言うんじゃね
I replied instantaneously.
え。あいつはああだから光るんだろうが。つまり消える瞬間のろうそくだ。期限付きゆえの爆発なんだよ。下手にダラダラと長引かせたら、むしろあいつは劣化する。次もあるだのと日和られて加減されちゃたまんねえ。
You're basically a connoisseur of soul tastes, I guess. If that happened, I could never witness Claudia at her greatest. Fuck that.
どしがたい。不死を望む男がよくも言った。
おお、その点は自覚してるぜ。だからこそ得難い魂だと思ってるのさ。
As someone aiming to become Methuselah, I couldn't embody the strength of a fading candle, and in a sense, that was a weak point of every immortal. But by taking in Claudia, I'd make up for that flaw. A soul that gave it all for a momentous flame would surely elevate me further. Because of that, she just had to perish.
俺のために死ぬんだよ。あいつは俺のものなんだからな。
I declared that as strongly as possible, making him aware that he should just fuck off. Ludwig's aura became somewhat cold.
では東王、お前は一体何をもって彼女に死にたくないと言わせるつもりか。
I'm not entirely sure if he's actually been trying to get that done. It's more or less he's just been tolerating her the entire time.
そんなもんは一つしか思いつかねえ。
I mean, there is that deal that those two did come up with, so... Claudia couldn't be moved by fear. Just as she herself said, the power it had over her was meager, weak, and didn't bring any results. And if that didn't work, there's only one other way.
あいつを俺に惚れさせるんだよ。
There it is!
ベータな理屈で何も難しくない心理だろう。要は未練を生めばいい。
I'd kill her the moment she shrieked just how much she wanted me.
そんなクラウディアなら俺は愛せる。あいつは生涯最後に救いを得て最高に輝きながら死ねばいいんだ。
That was the outcome I desired, one where we became each other's first loves. I wanted to know romantic love so I could embody the love of destruction. In order for my desire to come true, I needed Claudia to become fixated on life. As Helga would have probably have put it, I couldn't get her unless she showed her dirty parts. It'd make her all pretty, and if I killed her then, she'd also get what she wanted. The satisfaction of teaching me love and the joy of having her own love reciprocated. Claudia would shine brightest at that single moment. Of course, there's no proof that it'd all be smooth sailing. She said she didn't want to become like Helga, so she could resist and distort the results. Claudia's ascent could easily become a descent into something demonic, and I might not get a brilliance as strong as I wanted. Still, this wasn't something I was willing to compromise. For me to fall for her, she had to fall for me.
色恋は勝負みたいなもんだとよく言うだろう。つまりそういうことなのさ。
You are goddamn insane.
I'm part of the obsidian table. We're all fucking insane.
なんで俺が主導権を取られなきゃいけねえんだよ。
That was the nature of hegemony. My needs come first and foremost.
よくわか
Ludwig gave a nod. Though we had entirely different ideas, we both wanted to complete Claudia. It was a battle for which one of us would make her shine, which methods would be used and which one would be right, which one of us was strong and would have claimed to her. It was basically a contest.
る。しかしそれなら
He took a step forward.
相手がお前でなければならない理由はどこにもない。
まあ、そうなるわな。
Well, it was obvious, and I more or less expected it, so I also knew what would come next.
それじゃ、景気よく行こうか。おい！
I moved toward him, allowing my surging urges to take over, and swung my fist. It was an attack as powerful as the one I used against him at Kachin. With it, the fight from back then would resume. Of course, I expected him to dodge this one too, so I instantly thought of the dozens of attacks I'd follow up with, and each of them would be an improvement over the last. Wondering just how long the Vatican shithead would last, Contrary to my expectations, the first punch was a clean hit. He'd actually taken the attack that he'd once evaded with ease and flew backward, making the church pews clatter to the ground.
は？
My thoughts exactly? It seemed like sort of a fucking joke. I mean, the battle hadn't even begun.
てめえ。
My perplexion was followed by anger, and that was when...
何をしてるんですか、あなたたち。
Scheisse. The worst part is, if I'm thinking in the line of Ludwig, there's a possibility that he planned this. The door swung open. Behind it was Claudia, breathing raggedly as she glared at me.
気になったから来てみれば、ここをどこだと思ってるんですか。それにビルヘルム、あなたは無抵抗の人にそんなこと。
What the fuck was she talking about? She barged in without anyone asking. Did she really think her nonsense mattered? Claudia wordlessly ran past me and fell to her knees before the damn clown who just held back for no fucking reason at all. She took him by the shoulders, helped him up a bit, and spoke to him with honest worry in her tone.
あ、ルイ、大丈夫ですか。ひどい怪我。一体何があったんです。どうしてあなたがこんな目に。
Because the fucker was picking a fight with me, damn it. We pissed each other off and saw each other as an obstacle, so we were about to settle it with an exchange of blows. It was manly etiquette. I didn't care if a woman understood that or not, but I really didn't want her butting her head into it. That shit killed my buzz.
気にするな。私は平気だ。君こそあまり無理をしてはいけない。まさかここまで走ってきたのか。辛かったろうに。お願いだからもっと自分を大事にしたまえ。
私のことはいいんです。それよりあなたが。
You're the one hurt who's hurt?
ああ。だが嬉しかったよ。ありがとう。
Well, you kind of screwed up on that one, Bey. Looks like she's gonna start going toward that alignment.
アホくさ。
What a joke. Fed up with the farce, I turned around and began walking away.
待ちなさい、ビルヘルム。ちゃんとルイに謝って。
Seriously? Huh, like hell. A teary voice coming from behind sounded like a pig squeals to me. Now the fact that pigs didn't do any stupid shit and simply became your sustenance actually made them seem a bit better.
どこに行くんですか？ねえ、ビルヘルム。
知らん。死ぬまで好きにやってろや。
They killed my vibe and I couldn't understand them at all. Are they fucking insane or what?
Well, you did it.
Well, yeah, looking back on it, I was immature back then. But I actually was young, so it was only natural. 5 years had passed since I'd met Lord Hydric, became a knight of the Obsidian Table, and gained inhuman abilities. That had been my entire history at that point, and I was only in my 20s. I have no intention of making excuses for myself, but yeah, I just wasn't mature enough. Excessive power, mixed with my youth and emotions, was way too much for me to handle. Of course, like I ever intend to fix the fact that I'm a crude, rough person. I'll say it again. Being worldly is important. Acting all enlightened and transcendental ain't me. I don't want to become like that. I'm confident that the things I'd feel if I was put in the same situation again wouldn't change. Acting all considerate, prudish, and mature is a total waste of time. Wasn't about that life. I'm the type to act on my urges and unleash them however I damn well please. That's my style. That's exactly why I don't want to ever misfire. I want to allow my instincts to always explode at the exact right time, aimed at the exact right target. And for that I have to train my scent. I feel like I have to learn to conduct myself in a way that allows me a clear head no matter the solution. I want to become a man who's able to sniff out the right way to do that, not by reason, but through intuition. I never want to misfire like that again. Imperfect releases like that can fuck off. Honestly, I'm still learning to do that, but that was exactly when I became aware of the philosophy. My life as Methuselah would continue forever. I wanted to have fun doing it. That was why. That was exactly why.
機嫌悪いね、ベイン。何か辛いことでもあったのかい？
はい。
よければ相談に乗ってやろうか。一人で悩んでてもきっと永遠に解決しないよ。だって君、頭悪いんだからさ。
うるせえ。いいからてめえは黙ってろ。
Okay. That was why I was with this lunatic. Though he had no business calling me dumb, he was definitely the man closest to the philosophy I just mentioned. I walked through the castle's hallway while Schreiber frolicked around like a dog. He was all smiles and joy, making it clear he barely even knew what stress meant. He was always smiling and acted friendly with everyone, making him seem much like a friendly puppy. However, no one I knew ever approached him of their own volition. The reason for that was clear. Though he was akin to a dog, he definitely wasn't the puppy he appeared to be. If anything, he was more like a poisonous, maddened wolf. The ferocious, raging storm, the mad beast, the murderer. Schreiber was infamous for killing more people than anyone else at the Obsidian Table. In fact, he might have killed more than anyone else in history. Directly, I mean. I'm not including leaders like Lord Hydric or those who kill just by dropping bombs or flipping a switch on gas chambers. I'm only talking about situations where you're on the scene, facing the target, hearing his dying screams, and feeling his blood on you. Under those conditions, Schreiber was unmatched, and because of that, the number of souls he had was on a different level. His urge for violence and the amount he could stuff himself with were both extraordinary. He was basically a gluttonous eater who was starving all the time, so the amount of prey he gathered was insane. I don't like that one fucking bit, but I couldn't deny the reality of it. Though if there was one flaw I could name about that, it'd be the fact he wasn't a gourmet. He didn't care about taste and ate without consideration. No matter how much or what he took in, all of it was junk food for him. I at least like to go for it vegan, and I go for the healthy shit. That's the good stuff, I tell you right now. It was the embodiment of the quantity over quality approach. Sure, he had the numbers, but all of it was trash. In that sense, we were incompatible. Still, as I said, he was an easygoing guy who was always having a good time, so I chose him to help me get rid of my stress.
しかしまあ、わかりやすく見つかってくれたことだけは褒めてやる。
そうかい？じゃあ何かお礼をしてくれるのかな？
He never stayed in one place, but he always left a trail of corpses in his wake. Reminded me of Hansel and Gretel. Anyway, it was easy to catch as long as you just followed the dead. You need to have some nerve to do that, though. Okay, note to self, if I see a corpse and there's a trail of them, I will know where that goes.
あれだけ下品に食い散らかしたくせしやがってこの暴挙
Schreiber had already killed over 1,000 people in the last few days alone. Women and men, young and old, didn't matter to him. That was worse than a fucking bombing. Total nutcase if I ever saw one.
だが例ねお前にそんなもんをやる気はねえがそっちで勝手に気持ちよくなる分には止めねえよせいぜいはしゃげや犬っころ
いいねだったらそうさせてもらおうか
He relied on intuition rather than logic. Even if he didn't understand shit, his instincts helped him sniff out the scent of blood. And I saw a certain kind of clarity in that. Without asking a single question, Schreiber accompanied me to a certain place.
Oh! This arena.
There was a vast arena beyond the door we arrived at. The place wasn't good so for much, so not many people visited. But that wasn't the only reason why it was so deserted.
ようマキナ悪いが少し場所借りるぜ
God damn it.
It was the main haunt of Gotz von Bolschingen. For reasons different than Schreiber, he was also very hard to approach. I apologize if I terribly mispronounced that name. I almost mispronounced pronounce. God damn it.
別にいいだろそれともなんだ諸場代でもよこせってのか
That'll be about 100,000 souls from you and 100,000 souls from him, and that we should be relatively good. Have at it.
あいにくと金なんざ持っちゃいねえなお前に払えるもんがないわけでもね
Did somebody call for some money? I got some rotospine cash for you.
君も混ざりなよマキナきっとその方が面白い
Machina silently fixed his eyes on Schreiber. They were like those of a dead fish, failing to reflect even the faintest bit of light. Malleus had said that Ludwig was like the dark, but I'd say that Machina was far more deserving of that description. He was extremely gloomy, and always thought only of dying. And that was exactly why most didn't want to get involved with him. It definitely wasn't just rejection from his side. We found him unpleasant and to be more direct, scary. While he wished to become immortal, he embodied the concept opposite of that, which gave us a somewhat unreasonable urge to avoid him. He was the type of guy who made us think we'd die if he touched us. And the idea wasn't exactly wrong. I mean, that's kind of what his ability is. Machina wasn't a guy I wanted to cross, so yeah, you get the point.
バルハラの先輩として遊んでくれやなあ
With a wide grin on my face, I threw a backhand blow at Schreiber, who was to my side, but I ended up just fanning the empty air. Suddenly, I felt a slithering snake-like impact on my medulla.
そうそう二人でベイの相談に乗ってあげようじゃないか
Is this gonna be my training arc?
僕ら仲間で仲良しだもんね
As he evaded my attack, Schreiber kicked me toward Machina, and the silent shithead slapped me away like I was nothing. After this brief pinball-like experience, I crashed into the wall.
クソどもやりやがったな俺だけバカみたいじゃねえか
そんなことはないだろう今のはむしろ美味しいんじゃないかと思うよねえマキナ
Don't drag me into this.
ぜひ
As I stood and shook away the rubble, Schreiber joyfully looked over me with an eye full of bloodlust, while Machina silently looked around like a tank slowly turning its gun. Apt description. It pissed me off that they both gained a point over me, but I quickly stopped caring about that. After all, I was standing before two guys who responded in kind to my moves, and I could do whatever I wanted to them. Getting to play around with toys that didn't break no matter how roughly I treated them was uplifting, to say the least. I was so damn tired of misfires and imperfect releases that I wanted to run and jump around like my instincts urged me.
手抜きはなしだ
ideals and lives were entirely different. But strangely enough, we took the first step at the exact same time. The three of us crossed and clashed like unsheathed swords. No one pulled a feint, and it wasn't a battle in which that would have even worked in. Though we weren't amiable by any stretch of the imagination, we tended to sense the mood when fighting. So there was a sort of a tacit understanding between us. My fist landed right on Machina's mug, while Schreiber sunk his knee into my side. It was obvious what had to happen to make it a three-way, but it didn't work like that. Machina grunted as he launched his fist towards Schreiber. The murderer avoided it by a hair's breadth. That means Schreiber won the exchange? Nope, not at all. Machina's fists bore unmatched weight and power. Sure, he was the slowest among his three, but his punches more than compensated for that fact. He was indeed akin to a heavy tank, and his fists were heavy artillery. He didn't touch or even aim for me, yet it felt like he just tore off my skin. Like a missile just flew right by my eyes. Even if he missed, the pressure created by his fist was a weapon in and of itself. And it needn't be said what happened to Schreiber upon taking the brunt of that. He looked like a slender little brat. Just resisting it might have torn him to pieces. Because of that, he was the one who'd been blown away by the clash. Smote by the hammer-like gale, he spurted out blood and flew backward. The punch also left me with 5 or 6 broken ribs, but I kept my stance. Machina chose Schreiber as his prey and chased after him, so I kicked him from behind as thanks for the hit from before.
I literally eat artillery shells and tanks for breakfast. What did you expect?
The words just slipped out, but they were my most honest thoughts. I'd landed 2 clean hits on him so far, but his body was basically a hunk of steel. That's not just an exaggeration either, but explaining that would take a while, so I'll leave it at that. Anyway, his hardness aside, since I kicked him with all I had, I ended up giving him speed in his chase for Schreiber. Of course, that wasn't enough for one player to drop out of the game. Schreiber reached the wall faster than Machina, made a quick turn, and leaped into the air to escape. Machina ended up arriving a bit late, so he missed. Suddenly, a roaring echo shook the entire arena. It was a scene that made it painfully obvious how dangerous his punches were. The storm of destruction they caused made it seem like a meteor just landed. Of course, he was strong enough to cause an absurdly strong shockwave as well. The mud up in the air wasn't able to escape its influence. He lost control of his posture and was thrashed around like a leaf in the wind. Schreiber was a sitting duck, prey ready for the taking. I instantly entered the formation stage and launched hundreds of my thorn stakes toward him. I was certain that I'd hit him, but he surprised me. That's about right. I heard a chain of gunshots. They were so quick and numerous that I couldn't tell how many bullets he fired. The results surpassed my expectations, but it was clear as day what just happened. He shot down each and every one of my stakes. Ooh, now time for his formation. Hello there. Next, the emptiness became thick with blood, less so dense you could hear it. A 2-wheeled monster appeared around Schreiber's feet, emitting the stench of rotten blood. It was a military bike that had run over tens of thousands of people. The image you get from those words might be somewhat comical. But when you see it in person, it's nothing to laugh at. That thing was cursed by all the agony and screams it engorged itself on. It had an owner so insane it became a monster with its own will. The days when it was just a simple iron construction were long gone. Its presence alone caused terror, and honestly I find it praiseworthy. It was both the proof and the embodiment of the fact that people could kill a lot of their own kind. Anyway, with that, both Schreiber and I were in the formation stage. Machina had been there from the start, so all 3 of us were finally on the same level. Round 2 was about to begin, and I had a lot of expectations for its opening. The moment after I thought that, Schreiber's eye shifted away from me. He then instantly changed course, turning around midair and tearing through space. He swooped into the still present curtain of dust. The one there was none other than Machina. Huh? At first I didn't understand why he ignored me, but it didn't take long for me to figure it out. We were all in the formation stage. It was round 2 and he wanted to make it the final one, to ensure the third round didn't come. Basically, he didn't want Machina to use his creation figment, so he'd instinctively chosen to go for him first. Schreiber used his greatest advantage, speed, to rapidly attack Machina and prevent him from doing that. However, because of that, the Mud himself couldn't use his creation figment either. But he decided that keeping the walking tank in check was more important. Despite being mentally broken, he always had the right answers when it came to battle. Preventing your enemies from going all out was, in a sense, a way of not going all out.
だったら、しょうがねえわな。
If there was one mistake Schreiber made, it was leaving me for later. Unlike those two, who kept each other from using their creation figments, I could use mine to my heart's content. If blocking an enemy's special attack was going all out, then so was making use of an enemy's failures. I could call for my Knight of Bloodstained Roses and no one would be able to complain. But on the other hand... Nah, fuck that. It was important to play along, to keep up with the spirit and mood of the scene. Yeah, nice stage, so breaking it down would have been tasteless. Honestly, I wouldn't have been as surprised if Schreiber knew that I'd arrived at that conclusion. The Mutt might have understood me better than I thought. I mean, it was just impossible that he wasn't afraid of me doing anything to kill the mood.
違うよな。ほら、てめえらいつまで勝手にイチャついてやがる。俺も混ぜろや。寂しいだろうがよ。
I burst out into a roaring laughter and jumped into the raging storm of iron and beast.
相談に乗ってくるんじゃなかったのか？乗ってくれよ。最近ムカつくことばかりでよ。イラついちまって切れそうなんだよ。
I fucking love this artwork for Bey.
It's so fucking demented!
な、マキナ。てめえ女いたことあるか？それも忘れちまったんかよ、こら。なんか言えこら。
we don't want the answer to that one.
For someone who didn't know me first, he sure had no business getting pissed at that. Guy was a pain in the ass.
てめえにんなもんいるわけはねえだろ。聞くだけ無駄ってもんだこのカス。
ああ、言ったな。僕は結構モテるんだぞ。
Popular in this universe or the fandom?
黙れ貴様。鬱陶しい。
I mean, clearly Machina is the one that gets all the ladies.
Just so you know, we weren't just messing around. Sure, we behaved like it was a game, but it was more or less what killing each other felt like to us. I punched, got punched. Do another punch, rinse and repeat. I should have had Schreiber dodge them all, but I wasn't gonna let him have an easy time. Both Machina and I were punching with the intent of tearing him apart with the first hit we landed.
つまり君は振られたのか。うわー、かわいそうだね。チューしてやろうか。そんなもんさっさと殺しちゃえばよかったのにさ。そうすりゃ君のものになってただろ。
Is Bey getting fucking relationship advice from fucking Schreiber?
ぐずぐず半端なことやってるから他のやつにさらわれるんだよ。
Oh my
単
god.
なる自業自得じゃないか。
やかましい。てめえみたいな悪識野郎の理屈で俺を語るな。
This is the weirdest way to get relationship advice, just saying.
Eating good food involved fancy dress codes and all that shit. It was something that took time and effort, and there were definitely weird tastes that only stuck out after you dedicated those things to it. I don't hate casual dining or anything, but a true connoisseur has to be able to enjoy both. Biased methods produce biased results.
てめえならわかんだろ。なあ、マキナよ。
A hard-earned moment, the supreme prey, the promised victory and glory that lay beyond. Though we saw different ends, both of us wanted a sense of accomplishment that could only come from fixation and preference. I didn't know much about the guy, but I had no doubt he had aesthetic since he had loyally adhered to. That was why I knew he would understand my logic.
結局ないものねだり。てめえに足りないものを欲してんだよ。完全なものになるために。
I required it in order to become Methuselah, an undying man. That would allow me to walk the endless path of strife with nothing but glee on my face. For that I had to evolve. If I grew used to the idleness of immortality, my soul would fester and rot, ravaging me with suicidal thoughts. To that end, I had taken the eruptions that could only occur in limited lives. For the sake of staying worldly, I had to manifest one really damn foolish light and make it my own.
けどいちいち難儀でムカつくんだよな。
I squeezed down on a fist with sticks growing out of it and threw a punch toward Machina's chest, as if calling out to the heart of this unsociable man of iron.
当たり前だ。てめえにないもんだから。取ろうとすれば拒絶反応が起きやがる。ありてえに一筋縄じゃいかねえんだよ。めんどくさくてたまんねえ。柄じゃねえとかアホくせえとか思うことばっかりじゃねえか。お前はその辺どう折り合いつけてんのか答えろよ。なあ、いやつってんだろ。いつまでもシカトぶっこいてんじゃね
Good luck. Suddenly, Machina's fist sank into my solar plexus. It pierced me completely and made me feel like I was being torn apart. The quality of that punch was on a different level from the ones before. It was close to ones you get from his craving. Not only physically destructive, but also dense with the concept of death. I spat blood and riot due to the pain of having my soul shattered. Yeah, it was a pretty heavy punch. We'd fought so many times before, but it was definitely the first time one of his attacks had such an effect on me. I felt like the pain and weight were the very answer to my question. However, he proceeded to add words to his response. I, of all people, am going so far and doing so much to make this a reality, so quit complaining and bring me results! He was basically saying that it pissed me off because I thought of it like that. He wasn't wrong. Alright! Fuck off! And that alone was why he had his fists. He raised one of them and swung it toward me, but I evaded it right before it landed. Schreiber went to where I moved and kicked me in the spine.
よくわかんないけど、君はダメ男ってことだな、ベイ。いいじゃないか。世の中そういう需要もあるんじゃないの？君には似合ってるような気がするよ。それで釣れる女の質はたかが知れてると思うけどね。
Man, they were just talking shit at this point. I did ask for advice, but I didn't give them permission to make an ass out of me. And so I let my anger erupt and roared in response.
俺は俺のままで行くんだよ。
お前の迷いが晴れることは英語ない。
Machina hit me with another punch. I felt like it could blow away my very self, let alone my consciousness, but I stood firm. It wasn't enough to shatter me. This punch didn't mean shit. No matter how much of a Deus Ex Machina it was, my story wasn't cheap enough to be ended by a hit from this fucking formation.
てめえらの説教は一応覚えといてよ。 だが他人に言われてああそうですかと終始買いするようなやつは俺じゃねえ。ビルヘルム・エーレンブルクの生き方じゃねえ。欲しいもんを得るためにてめえを捨てるようじゃ本末転倒ってもんだろうが。
Huh. That was exactly why I progressed while getting mad all the time. I considered my acts of kindness and proudly demanded I be rewarded, and I continued to be like that even if I was told I was mistaken. A modest Willem Ehrenberg? Fuck that, what a joke.
そんなもんあいつに言わせりゃじゃがいものね料理みたいなもんだろうが。
I feel like I'm lacking a little bit of context.
Oh, that's totally what she was telling him last time. I'm pretty sure Spine was talking about it.
Where the hell did he hear that? Oh, right.
Are you two having a conversation while I'm having my moment? I wanted to be able to clear my head no matter the situation. That was the philosophy I was seeking in life, but...
確かに1
結局一番めんどくさいのは君だったって話だな。
That was the reason why it didn't work out. Because it didn't work out, I continued to seek it. I wasn't as tasteless as Schreiber, so I couldn't just coast like him. And I wasn't as absent as Machinus, so I couldn't deal with it earnestly. It seemed fair to call me half-baked for that, but I couldn't let anyone call me a loser. Because I wanted so strongly to feel that pride surge within me.
だからてめえらもうちょい俺に付き合えや。
I wanted to have it all blown away. Let the fire rage, and I wasn't gonna sweat the small stuff. I need to feel the precise heat that made me feel like me. In Valhalla, the Palace of Strife, we fought without ever growing bored. I wanted to gain a soul that wouldn't waver, no matter how many decades, centuries, or millennia passed. And I felt like this was a necessary baptism. Yeah, I wanted to keep going like that for all eternity. You think that's insane? What of it? Doesn't mean shit at this point. Damn. I need some tea. Angel and the Rosenkranz.
いい天気。今日も綺麗な青空です。
I woke up and started my day by opening the window and taking in a deep breath. After inhaling enough of the sun scent and light, I sent out a prayer of gratitude and hope. This was a habit of mine I'd acquired before I even had awareness of the world around me. It also came with a daily scolding as well. What do you think you're doing, Claudia? Why must you do this, child? How many times do I have to tell you to stop? Mother and sister figures back at the monastery I'd grown up in told me similar words every single day. I must have been quite a problem child for them. There was little bliss to be found in the garden of women living in honorable poverty, not to mention that the times were harsh. Defeating the previous war left behind many widows and orphans who had nowhere to go. It was one of the few places that took them in. Monasteries everywhere were filled to the brim. In all honesty, there was no leeway whatsoever. To live as a nun, you had to be of use. Even as a child, he who does not work, neither shall he eat, was one of our basic tenets. And a hoyden like me, who did nothing but make it harder for everyone, was just a nuisance. It was even worse because I also had a disability. Those merely injured or ill could perhaps be healed, but my condition was incurable. I was born with it, and I was certainly impaired by it in several ways.
でも最近は調子がいいですし、そろそろ慣れてきたんじゃないのかなって思うんです。もう昔みたいにすぐ寝込んだりはしないですよ。本当ですって。やだな。嘘なんか言いませんから。
Direct sunlight was enough to disturb my health. I wasn't even at risk of going blind. I was even at risk of going blind at one point, and if the nuns had to take care of someone like that, they wouldn't have gotten a moment's rest. And since I was a problem child, I didn't even control myself when given less work than the rest.
そういうわけで大丈夫。さあ、今日も張り切って働きましょう。
I liked running around the light. It hurt and was hard to bear sometimes, but I found the sense of fulfillment so splendid that I prioritized it over the negatives. I couldn't thank the other nuns enough. Despite all they said, they always allowed and tolerated my selfishness. If they only thought of efficiency, they would have thrown me into a room with no windows. Then they could have kept me there, confining me until I died under the pretense that they were nursing me. Doing so would have prolonged my life and lessened the burden on everyone there. It was objectively the best decision they could have made for all involved parties. But they didn't do that. Though they were considerate of the location of the window and furniture, they generally didn't bind me whatsoever. Whenever I could but stand and walk, I would frolic around in the light. Perhaps they merely figured that my idiocy wasn't as incurable as my illness, but even so, I could only thank them, for they didn't take the day away from me. This is interesting that we're getting this from her perspective. Angel and the Rosencrantz, that makes sense. Yeah, that's apt and very fitting name. I, Claudia Jerusalem, was a child of the night, an albino, and as such, I was well aware that I could only tolerate half of the world around everyone else. Or, I'm sorry, half of the world everyone else experienced, but even so, I didn't want to give up. If those who could live in the light told me to keep away because I was different, I might have ended up as an ill-tempered girl. I might have hated them and cursed the light. However, it didn't come to that, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. Some might have thought that the nuns had merely let me act on my stupidity because they wanted me to die as quickly as possible, but I wasn't cynical enough to look at it that way. Many had asked me why I was so fixated on the light despite the effect it had on me, and I always had more or less the same answer.
理由が必要なのでしょうか?
I mean,
人としてごく当たり前の欲求ではないでしょうか?
those words came from the bottom of my heart. True as they were, though, I understood that they were contradictory. In fact, some very few of those who'd ever heard them. After all, my words were but about human instinct, and if that was truly my reason, I, as an animal, wouldn't insist on doing something that slowly drained my life. That would be the normal way to look at it, and besides, in the realm of faith, suicide was taboo, so I ended up seeming like a truly broken, sinful individual. Thus, I thought it over again and re-examined myself in an attempt to find out where this prayer, this craving that burned me so, actually originated. It was true that I was being foolish, but I didn't want to wallow in self-deprecation after being treated as such. I wished to believe that my desire was something to be proud of, so I wanted to gain clarity about how it came to be. After a bit of thought, I considered that it was indeed instinct. Young children were often afraid of the dark, and I too had my heart captured by what was bright. But things began seeming a bit strange from there on. I was in no position to say this, but my preferences mattered little to reality. My condition could be called a type of allergy, after all. No matter how much a child loved bread, he would have avoided wheat if it endangered his life. I, however, didn't hold myself back or make any compromises. Part of it was probably my youthful stubbornness and jealousy of everyone else, but why would I continue even after growing old enough to make reasonable judgments? Was it perhaps because I wanted to somehow return the favor to the nuns who brought me up and allowed me to act selfish? Or perhaps I wanted to show them that I was fine and deserved to be treated as an adult? I did indeed feel both of those sentiments, and there was no falsehood behind those words. But even so, I knew that deep inside me, there was some other motive. It was a distant memory, from a time I couldn't recall. But the event itself was something I couldn't forget. The sight from back then was burned into my soul, living with me to this day. Oh. White doves flying? I saw a blue, pale, boundless, endlessly clear sky with a flock of birds flying under it. The scene moved my heart. Their wings were crystalline, and I couldn't help but find their free, noble existence to be precious. Nobile, what the fuck am I saying?
天使みたい.
Vague, but with a certain yearning. That was the very ideal I'd weave. The truth behind the feelings I'd painted and aimed for had a wing-like shape. I wished to become akin to an angel, with which that blue sky suited more than anything else.
私はここに集いたる人々の前で厳かに神に誓わん。我が生涯を清く過ごし、我が務めを忠実に尽くさんことを。私はすべての毒あるもの、害あるものを断ち、悪しき薬を用いることなく、また知りつつこれを進めざるべし。私は我が力の限り、務めの水準を高くせんと努むべし。
Deleterious?
我が務めにあたりて、私が知り得たる人々の指示すべて、私は人に漏らさざるべし。私は心より意志を助け、我が手に託されたる人々の幸に身を捧げん。
The pledge I solemnly etched upon my heart was my pride and desire. I swore to become an all-loving apostle of life, of the sun. I promised to always be ready to serve, regardless of how many sought me. Even if light would lead me to death, I wanted my heart to always bear this wing-like mark. I wished to be blessed by the endless blue. Thus, no matter what became of my body, I never felt like it was torture. I fervently believed that it wasn't deleterious, mischievous, or harmful, and I didn't want to act against the pledge. My bliss was proof of the light's good nature. The joy it filled me with overcame the pain and made me forget the fear. For others' sake, for my sake, and for the sake of all those who are suffering, I wished to walk a path shining with light. I would become wings that could take to the sky, my ideal, into the pale, blue, boundless horizon and beyond the world itself. And exactly because I wished to fly, I wished to feel what it meant to be truly burned by the light, the love that only angels experienced. I believe that only then would I find the true significance of my life. After all, those who were angelic were defined by...
Wilhelm.
With you in my mind, I continued to dream. You were the only other child of Noah I'd ever met. I saw my ideal in you, and I felt the hand of fate at work as we spent time together. I dreamed day in and day out. I couldn't explain it well, but I was very certain of one crucial fact. You would someday become a true miracle.
良きところへ行きたい。ねえ、そうでしょ?
We were akin to one-winged angels. You were my other wing, and I revered the light because I wanted to become yours. Interview with Kaziklu Bey. And so I woke up to find myself spread out on the ground. There were wounds all over me and I could barely even move a muscle. At the very least, I was certain I was still alive, but I had no memory of what had happened after that moment during the fight. I actually didn't mind all that much. After all, it meant that I'd climaxed so hard that I completely forgotten everything. That's an odd way of putting it, but thank you very much. And even if my head didn't remember what happened, my body sure did. The pain and wounds all over it were more than enough proof of what went down. Just that once, I really didn't care how the battle turned. Instead, I just wanted to burn my soul. Nothing else mattered. Very damn clear that I went all out and did whatever I wanted, so everything else was an afterthought. After all, I knew I had plenty more chances to settle the score with those two assholes, so I figured I could just leave it for later and be satisfied with the knowledge that I had succeeded. The moment I thought that... Oh, God, get away from me! A man's voice stopped me from enjoying the pleasant remnants of my exaltation and pulled me back to reality. Not caring about the pain, I jumped back up on my feet. Cause my computer to go crazy, don't cause my computer to go crazy, don't cause my computer to go crazy, please don't do it, don't. Watching you.
おやおや、無理をするなよ。かなりひどいありさまなのだぞ。こちらまで痛くなる。城で死ぬのはお前にとって本望かもしれんがね。まだ準備が整いきっておらんのだ。つまり端的に言うと、犬死にになりかねない。
Oh god damn it. Why? Anytime that this asshole shows up, my computer goes haywire.
マキナのごとくなれるかどうかわからんし、慣れたとしても不安定だ。所詮今は黄金閣下の想像で存在できているに過ぎん。解除すれば消えてしまうし、不死というには甘いだろう。そもそも大元である黄金殿からしてまだそういうものになっていない。以前ラインハルト・ハイドリヒは人なのだ。不敬を承知で言わせてもらえば死んでしまうし殺せてしまう。そしてそうなった時彼のレギオンも引きずられる。お前の求める不滅とはそのように儚いものではないだろう。
黙れよ。
I somehow became able to open my mouth and speak, and the first thing I said was an attempt to end the exchange. I didn't give a shit about absurd scenarios where Lord Hydric died, and I didn't care about all the other small details either.
てめえには心の底からうんざりする。消えろよ、関わってくるんじゃねえ。
Nothing good could come from dealing with him. Worst case scenario, you'd get a curse for life.
俺はてめえに言われたような負け犬じゃねえ。奪うものなんだ。欲しいもんは手に入れんだよ。
When he'd given me the Kaziklu Bey alias, he'd also claimed that I would never gain anything. The people I desired would always slip out of my grasp. I didn't like, accept, or acknowledge that. I even felt like he was just picking a fight back then.
かたくなだな。しかしまあ、信じる信じないはそちらの自由か。自身を奪うものだと定義するのは飢えている己を自覚しているからだろうに。ベイ、一つ教えてやろう。奪うものとは奪われ続けるものなのだよ。足りないからこそ欲しくなるのだ。満足しているものならばそもそも外に手を伸ばさん。
He formed an implicative smile. I couldn't tell whether it was an expression of ridicule or pity.
波動の差がだな。講義的にはお前の他にも言えることだよ。黄金閣下とて例外ではない。ゆえ皆がその業を突破できるように私は手を尽くしている。ならばこそまずは自身で認めることだ。でなくば話が始まらん。九段の少女と何があったかは知らんがね。彼女を奪いたいと思っているなら今のお前は感心せんぞ。意中の女性を3日も放置していいことなど何もない。
Was that how long I was going at it?
は？おい、ちょっと待て。
One of the things he said made me open my eyes wide.
かだと。
Shit!
さよう、気づいていなかったのか。ここでお前たちがじゃれ始めてからすでに3日経っている。
Which means a lot of bad shit could have gone down.
没頭すると周りが見えなくなるのは悪い癖だな。つい半日ほど前、黄金閣下に止められるまでひたすら遊び続けていたわけだ。まあそれはそれでグラズヘイムに適性がある証と称えてやらんでもないが。
You better get moving. If I just stayed there, he'd have kept talking for hours on end, so I ignored my creaking body, stood and began walking away. Ignoring all his bullshit about her being my dearest or whatever, leaving the idiot alone for 3 whole days wasn't good, so I had to return as quickly as possible.
結構女性には紳士であれよ。いつ何が起こるかわからん。黄金閣下はついにクリストフを追うと決めたようで、そのためにマキナとシュライバーを召したわけだが、それも予定通りに行くとは限らんからな。ああ、まったく未来はいつも闇の中だよ。
I had no idea he was talking to. I knew it was fucking nonsense, but I didn't even feel like telling him to shut up. That aside, I was feeling somewhat uneasy. In the 3 days I'd spent fighting, it had been a week since Claudia's mysterious recovery. Neat numbers like that were always meaningful, especially when the calendar was involved. I wanted to laugh it off as superstition, but I was actually overcome by a sense of danger I found difficult to describe. I felt like I had to go to Claudia and see her as soon as possible. To get rid of the unpleasant laughter behind me, I dashed out of the arena and headed back to my place. But I neared my destination, I noticed my legs suddenly grew heavy. No, it wasn't because of the injuries. Sure, the price I paid for fucking around for 3 days straight was huge and it wouldn't heal easily, but there was another reason. Basically, as silly as it seems, I just had no idea what I was supposed to do upon seeing her. I mean, it would have been cool if she were fine as always, but I had no idea what to do after that. The shitty memories I'd forgotten because the playtime began flowing back to me. Last time we met, she was mad at me, so what, was I supposed to apologize to her or something? Fuck that. I didn't do anything wrong. She was the one who misunderstood the situation, and it was her fault for falling for some shitty acting. So if anyone had to apologize here, it was her, without a doubt. But if I wanted to have her understand that, I had to explain what happened back then. But doing that would probably annoy me just as badly as having to apologize. It made me feel like I was making excuses, which would piss me off something fierce. Without in mind, I considered acting like nothing happened, but I felt like that attitude wouldn't work. It would have made me seem like I was extremely conscious of that. Conscious of but, which would have been pretty damn pathetic. There didn't seem to be a good way to handle the situation. Hell, the very fact I was thinking it through was perfect proof of just how shitty this whole thing was. The problem was fucking stupid, and that was exactly what made it so hard to solve. Screw thinking it through. I had no idea what had happened, but I decided to handle things as they came. With that in mind, I walked up to the house and violently opened the door. I acted menacing, like I was picking a fight or something, but what I got was a belated expression of surprise. Okay, I'm gonna level with you. I kind of duked it out with the living embodiment of a tank and a confused child on a bike. I'm not making that up. The hell? She was actually acting the same as usual, as always. It's so anticlimactic it filled me with relief and exasperation, though primarily the latter. Claudia exaggeratedly covered her mouth and looked at me with bewilderment. I had no idea what, but something had her act weird. And that was it. Finally understanding her, I lightly waved my hand and acting like it was nothing. Wait, what?
だからほっとけって俺はお前
いいから話は後で聞きます。今はとにかく治療。返事は？
これ引っ張んなってね言ってんだよ。
Kinda lost on that one, dude. I wanted to tell her that it'd heal and her treatment didn't mean shit, but Claudia didn't seem to be in a listening mood. Guessing my state gave her an itch she had to scratch. Anyway, she became pushy to the point of coercive and insisted on nursing me. I could have resisted, but it felt stupid to do so. Situations like these were best handled by letting her do what she wanted. So, despite all my grumbling, I obediently played along.
Oh.
何をやってるんでしょうね。あなたって人は。
I told you I literally just fought off a tank. Because of that, I ended up having to listen to her endless scolding. I was sitting on the floor while Claudia held a first aid kit in her hand and just did her thing.
子供じゃないんですから、ちょっと決まりが悪くなったくらいで、家出なんかしないでくださいよ。しかも帰ってきたら来たで、こんなこと。
It's a cute image. So, utterly cute.
この3日間、一体何をしてたんですか？どう見てもこれ、普通の怪我じゃありませんよ。重曹まで。
Honestly, would you believe me if I told you some boy girl riding a bike shot me multiple times?
まさか、戦場に行っていたとでも言うんですか？
そうだな。そんなに外れちゃいねえよ。
I thought of explaining it in detail, but she wouldn't have understood. And it wasn't wrong that I'd spent the past 3 days going through carnage unmatched by most wars. It left me with tons of wounds, and though they were gradually healing, they weren't too pretty at that particular point in time, so it was perfectly reasonable for her to be shocked.
呆れます。
Oh.
憂さ晴らしに戦争する人がどこにいますか？
Look at it.
あなたがだいぶいろいろとダメな人なのは知っているつもりでしたが、ここまでとはさすがに思いませんでした。本当にもうお説教する気にさえなりません。
No, girl, seriously, scold him.
してんじゃねえかよ。
And I didn't want her telling me I was hopeless. She probably read my mind and formed a self-deprecating smile.
あなたが帰ってきたら謝ろうと思っていたんですけどね。
What? Ugh.
すんなりそうさせてくれないのが歯がゆいです。思い通りにならない人って腹立ちますね。
Okay, that was definitely my line. It had a bandage around me, making me groan.
は？なんだよ。謝りたいだ？
What do you have to apologize for?
ええ、3日前のことは自分でも一方的だと思いましたし。
I mean, you can kind of blame Ludwig on that one. I'm convinced he probably just faked it because he knew Claudia was coming.
言い訳になっちゃいますが、あの時の私はおかしかった。今思えばの話ですけど、あまりにも短絡的で。両夫たるもの、いかなる時も公正さを失ってはならないと叩き込まれてきたんですよ。だというのに、なんというか、私はルイの肩を持ちすぎですね。それがあなたにとって面白くないというのはわかります。
That name got a stronger reaction out of me, so Claudia continued with a hint of panic in her tone.
あ、もちろん変な意味で言ってるんじゃないですよ。ただ当たり前の心理として、あなたは不公平に感じることが多かっただろうし、その辺をおもんぱかれなかった私は。
公正じゃなかったってか。
はい、すみませんでした。
I could feel her hang her head behind me, and it made me feel somewhat bad. I did think that she was the one who had to apologize, but despite getting what I wanted, I didn't feel the least bit refreshed.
あの野郎はその後どうした？
気になります？
I nonchalantly continued the conversation just to distract myself, but I didn't want her answering my question with another question. What the hell was up with her tone? It was full of some weird anticipation. Saying something back to her would have been a loss in my book, so I just silently radiated my anger. Claudia persisted for a moment, but then sighed in disappointment.
彼はすぐに帰りましたよ。別にその後、私と何があったというわけでもありません。
そんなことまで聞いちゃいねえよ。
聞いて欲しかったんですけどね。
As if in protest, she tightened their bandage. Okay, this time I endured it without groaning.
あの野郎、あれはお前に惚れてるぜ。何がいいのか知らねえが、とにかくそこは間違いねえ。だったらよ。
Didn't that mean that her goal had been fulfilled? As long as she became somebody's love, she should have been fine. Didn't have to be me. I went and asked her about that.
満足できたんじゃねえのかよ。
知りません。
And yet, she not only didn't give me a proper answer, but also grew sulky.
なんであなたはそんなことを言うんですかね。ちょっと理解に苦しみます。ここで私がそうですねって返したら、あなたはどうするつもりなんですか？それはあなたにとって望ましい展開ですか？
And again, she answered with another question. It pissed me off, so I radiated more anger, but she didn't yield this time around. In fact, she was getting about as angry as me. It was a weird kind of stalemate.
何をてめえは。
Her behavior seemed so fucking pointless. I seriously didn't mind if she was satisfied with just Ludwig's love. Of course, she'd also have to fall for him, but my plans wouldn't have changed regardless. I had no interest in saintly starfishes that just laid down and accepted death. Saintly starfishes? I don't think I've ever heard that before. Sure, there was a difference in whether she lost her innocence to him or me or him, but the result would have been the same. In that case, it'd be less like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing and more like a story where I came in like a paramour and burned their happy home to the ground. And honestly, that would be very me. That was what went on in my head. And I tried to say that I didn't care, but...
いや、気に食わねえな。
But my mouth wind said the exact opposite for some dumb reason.
お前は俺のもんだ、クラウディア。
That was a line I'd said many times so far, but this time there was something more to it.
俺が拾った命なんだから、俺に捧げろ。身も心も魂もだ。俺もそうする。
One thing was clear. Nonsense I was speaking was my true feelings. I could feel her gasp behind me. She closed the fingers she'd placed on my back, which were lightly shaking. The sound of the heartbeat was too damn loud. It was impossible to tell whether it was mine or Claudia's. My throat was dry. Felt hot, and yet I wasn't leaking a single drop of sweat. The abnormalities I'd never experienced before were definitely unpleasant, and I wouldn't have minded throwing away a few grand to make them go away, but at the same time, I felt like I wanted to feel them forever. The contradictory, incoherent emotions made me doubt my own sanity. Claudia's breathing was strangely loud. I felt a hint of dampness as she brought her mouth closer and... Her wet tongue traced one of my wounds. The hell did she just do? What? She suddenly yelped and jumped away from me. I turned around and for the first time ever saw her scared expression. What did you just do? What did she just do? The answer was clear. She probably knew that better than anyone. You licked my blood! There was a hint of my blood around her mouth, so she could surely still feel its taste. What the? As if repenting for her sinfulness, Claudia wiped her mouth, turned around, and rushed into the dark town, brushing against me in the process.
おい、待て。なんだてめえ。なんなんだよ。
You just summarized what I'm thinking. At that moment, I really hated my limited vocabulary. I would have liked to say something with at least a bit of meaning behind it, but it wasn't like words would have done much either, honestly. I couldn't make sense of the situation, but it was obvious that this wasn't that kind of scene. If I wanted to know the truth, I had to act.
クソが、笑えねえんだよ。
I roared, put on some clothes, dashed out of the house, and ran after Claudia. I was gonna catch her and ask her why the fuck she started acting like a vampire. However, once I went out, I couldn't see her anywhere. That just gave me more questions. How could a sickly woman run so damn fast? The town was shrouded in a curtain-like darkness. For some reason, I felt like it was mocking me. What the fuck? Nope. 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 No. Oh. I think that's probably the best way I could probably describe that. Okay, why did Claudia do that? That was, unexpected, to say the least. Extremely unexpected, you could say. Oh my god, this music! I think shit's finally about to go down soon. Oh boy. I did not see that coming. Shit, maybe she is an actual genuine vampire. Who the fuck knows at this point? Good god, that was moderately disturbing. Ugh. It started off all nice and innocent, and then all of a sudden that happened, and I'm just kind of sitting there like, what? I'm gonna end it there, so if y'all like this, be sure to let me know. I am a little bit worried. Like, did Ludwig actually do something to her? Or is this something that she initially had in the first place? I don't know, but I'm going to hopefully find out next time. So if y'all like this, be sure to let me know. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will definitely see all of you guys in the next video.